Greetings, Kevin here from Invisible Insights, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the biggest invisibles that happens in the success of organizations, and that is your second chair leaders. Most of the time, we often see the person up front, but we often miss the goings ons behind the scenes. And today, I want to talk about what it means to lead from the second chair. So let's think about it for a second. In the nonprofit world, or in the for-profit world for that matters, the mission matters way too much for leadership to become a solo act. That is very true. And the important thing to understand is the cause that we serve, whether it's people or it's communities, it's faith, it's education or justice, it's bigger than any one leader. And yet many organizations unintentionally operate as if leadership belongs to one seat at the top. It's just real. We just do that. But the truth is this: the mission is carried by two kinds of leadership. Number one, the first chair. And that's who holds the vision and the responsibility for direction. And that's crucial. That's key. We all know that. The second leader is the second chair, who turns that vision into momentum, alignment, and action. Now, it's important to understand that when those two leaders operate in isolation, the mission can struggle, and it can struggle in big ways. But when they operate in partnership, something powerful happens. Clarity increases, trust spreads through the organization, and the mission moves further than any leader could take it by themselves. So, that partnership between the first chair and the second chair is one of the most important and strategic relationships inside any organization. Now, there are many second chairs. It's just not like a number one and a number two. In many organizations, it's like a hub and spokes. There are a lot of number twos out there. There's lots of responsibilities. There's lots of opportunities to lead and make an impact. And it's important that everyone understands, as the second chair person, how vital their role is to the success of the organization. That is key. So let's take a look at some second chair secrets. And I'm just going to unpack my experience as a second chair leader in my role over the years. And I've been in that role for a long time. So let's talk about the first thing. The first thing is secondary vision casting. Now, it's really important for the primary visionary to feel and be understood. And that happens when you can take what they're sharing and say it in congruence consistently as if they are. Now, that means you're owning it. I mean, you've internalized it. And one of the bigger things in terms of secondary vision casting that I have learned to do is many times when we're sitting down and the leader's talking about what the outcome is, what do they want to see, what do they want to bring to life? I'm really digging in, and I'm repeating back to them what they're saying. And I'm using phrases like, what I'm hearing you say is. What I'm hearing you say is that you want it to be like this. You want people to feel like this. I'm even adding things to it so I can read what they're saying. I want to, maybe in some cases, I'm saying, you want to be like this. And they're going, oh, no, 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 wait. That's a little bit more over the top than I'm thinking, okay. And what I'm doing is I'm taking really good notes, because as a secondary vision caster, I want the level of energy to be very close to that of the visionary. I want to be living in that higher realm of when it comes to clarity, when it comes to energy, when it comes to, being detailed about what it is that we're creating here and the difference that we're trying to make. That is a big deal. So with that said, secondary vision casting is something you need to take serious. And when you start thinking about your role in an organization as a secondary vision caster, you just have to make sure that you really and vitally understand what it is and what the visionary wants, what it is that he's saying, and being able to express what he wants. And then that begins how you recruit. That begins how you connect. That begins everything. And it gives you a platform to really launch over on that end. Let's go to the next part of this, because there's something that's very important that connects to this, and and it's called That's Why We's. Now, whenever you have a vision, visions are always brought to life through different elements and things that we put into play. It could be a program, it could be why we maybe do screenings for people. If we say, hey, we want to create a safe place, that's why we screen our people. It's why we do background checks. That's why we do those kinds of things. That's why we's are really important. Hey, we do this. That's why we want an environment that's inclusive and fun and exciting. That's why we do this. That's why we do that. That's why I'm constantly writing that's why we's, because that's why we's are the tangible, teachable moments of a vision. So as a secondary vision caster, yeah, I want to get the big thing. I want to know what the big thing is. But as a second chair, I also have to execute. I have to get my team to understand all these little things, these details that really have to get carried out to be successful. And some of it's minutia, by the way, but true 100% that it's required in order to be safe and secure and all the good things that go on. That's why we do this. That's why we do that. That's why we always check and ask. That's why we always follow up. That's why we always are, assessing this or looking into that. Now, here's my question for you. What are your that's why we's? Because I know that, number one, you need to sit down with your visionary and you need to sit down and go, what I'm hearing you say is. And then as you start taking that and you start applying the execution of that to things, I want you to begin to start the process of listing out the that's why we's. Now, this is a great team thing. And sometimes if you have a team around you, I would do that's why we's with my team. Hey, this is the environment that we're creating. What are all of that's why we's? What are all the things that we do that make that happen? Because that is the connecting point to the vision and it is a tangible and workable way that we do that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So that's why we's, that's your homework assignment. Get after it. Figure out what your that's why we's are. And that's big. That will reinforce the vision. Now, the next one is priority alignment. Now, in my experience, when I'm clear on what the vision is and I've got my that's why we's in place, I have to execute things. I have to get things done. And most of the time, as I'm trying to get things done, I'm working through the lens of, okay, well, I only have so many hours in a day. I got to get this done. 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 What are the things that I need to do? And what do I need to get done? And what I would often do is I would sit down with my senior leader and I would go, hey, it's Monday, you got 5 minutes. These are the things I'm working on this week. These are my top 5 things. And my question for you is, how are my goals aligning with yours? Like are these the things you think I should be working on? Like in this priority, in this order? And 9 times out of 10, my leader, in this case, Dwight, he would look at me and he would go, Kevin, I want number 3 to be number 1, and here's why. And what it does is it deepens my understanding why that's important to him that I do that. And the more that I begin to understand, hey, my 5 is his number 1. My number 1 should be number 3. My number 4 should be number 2. That mix of top 5, sometimes it's even more. I think there's times where I don't know about you, but I had to list them out long, and I would had it broken down in categories. Sometimes he say, put this whole category of things over everything else, primarily because that's the challenge that we're working on right now. So that's one of those critical aspects that is so key to really putting a through line and attaching a through line to the success of whatever it is you're doing. So priority alignment really, really dials in the second chair in a much bigger way. Now, here's the thing. Now I'm stopping here. Do you see the progression? Do you see the essence and the progression here from, hey, here's the mission vision. Here's the thing. That's why, seek to understand. I'm trying to understand. This is what I'm hearing you say to the, hey team, this is what we're trying to do. Here's that's why we's. Now, hey, I'm laying out my priorities. I'm checking my work. I'm coming full circle and I'm checking my work and I'm going, am I on point? Am I on point? So often, we get sideways. We're chasing sometimes all the wrong things. And we don't have that constructive voice. We don't have a working relationship with the senior leader. We're just on a mission. And then we're just trying to knock things over based on the best understanding that we have. And sometimes we can be, hey, we start something an inch off and end up miles away. And you don't want to do that. And you don't want to create tensions because now you've invested yourself in trying to get something done, trying to do something for you, right? Right? Trying to get this vision, da 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 da. And now all of a sudden, now I'm invested in this. I'm attached to it. Now, the attached is an important and visible for us to understand as leaders. Because when we invest our time and energy in things that we think we ought to do, we lose sight of being open-handed. We grab a hold of it and we get attached to it. I'm pausing for effect. When we get attached, all of a sudden now it becomes personal. And we all of a sudden have become what I would call a shadow mission. The shadow mission is here's how I'm doing. This is we start using me language and my language and we start sentences with I spent all this time on this. And my team, we use those phrases. I know none of you, whoever listening or watching this, ever do that. Okay. All right. But I know I've been there. I'm going to confess. Okay. I have been there and I've gotten attached to things. And I'm now all of a sudden trying to hijack the vision. I'm hijacking what's going on, and it's not good. Now I'm competing. It's a competing system within the organization. Not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not good for you either. Because then drama enters into play, triangles get inserted, all that weird crap starts happening. And everyone says, and I saw you in that meeting, and so-and-so looked at you, and they were wondering, and like all that weirdness. Let's be ridiculously free. Okay. So that's why this progression is really important. Let's go on to the next one. Then we get into healthy conflict, right? Because we know that sometimes that attachment's going to occur. We know that sometimes we got to push back against things. Sometimes we have to think about the speed. I think if anything, in my relationship with Dwight over the years, in terms of him being my number one and me pursuing, I'm ridiculously committed to his success. However, can we get there a little slower? Like I got all these things like sometimes I don't feel like there's empathy from the top towards me. I don't feel like sometimes they're trying to go what I'm hearing you say, Kevin. And those are tensions we have to work through. That's called healthy conflict. Sometimes I got to do this. Now, here's the rule on healthy conflict. I'm going to be ridiculously open with you. I'm going to tell you the truth in love. I'm going to give you all the facts. And guess what? You still may disagree with me. We might not agree, but we need to come to an understanding. And the understanding, in many cases, in terms of what we come to, is clear. I can say everything that I want to say, and then he can take all that information and say, nope, we're still going with it. Great. Now it's time to take the hill. My job as a second chair is to ensure that he has the best information to make the best decisions he can make. And I feel like that I've given him that information and now he's made a decision. The decision is to continue to move forward. I don't agree with it, but I have to understand that's what he wants. I'm going to be professional and I'm going to take the hill. And I won't do it with any weirdness or anything because I got to see my piece. I got to really let it all hang out. And most of the challenge we bump into is we get into weird crap because all of a sudden we're just sitting there going da 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 da, and we get into this whole thing and then we, get sideways over it. It's not, listen, I'm just telling you, this is one of those things. You just take the hill. You take the hill and you set aside your preferences for the sake of something bigger. Are you with me on that? Healthy conflict is key. And guess what? You're going to have the same thing with yours because you think about it, as second chair, as a number two, somewhere in the organization, your team is going to push back on you and you're going to have to forge understandings. So get good at it because you're going to do it a lot, especially if there's something worth giving your life to. If there's something worth that if you don't do it, it won't get done. It is that pursuit of that thing that really matters, that you need to say, hey, look, yes, I don't agree. I understand. I'm taking a hill. I'm giving a full effort, full on. I'm going to do this. And guess what it teaches your team? It teaches your team to do that when you have that with them. With me on this? Don't miss on this one. This is a big one because this is part of conflict we don't talk about, but I want to make sure that we're on point. Okay, let's keep going. Now we're looking at leadership congruence. there has to be congruence. In other words, there has to be consistency between what people hear and what they experience. And if there's ever gaps, we want to have that level of congruence so that whenever there's a gap between what they expect and what they experience, that they fill it with trust and not suspicion. Now, this is a big thing as a second chair because congruence is probably more on us in the second chair than it is the visionary. The visionaries can continue to think big. They're going to continue to move forward. They're going to continue to do all these things. And we have to make sure that we're constantly saying it over and over. Now, here's the thing I'm telling you, congruence has to live out in how we do what we do. It's the behaviors. It's how we follow through. It's the level of energy we bring to something. And that congruence ties in. If there's something, if we're all going like, hey, we're really excited as an organization, we're launching this, and you get in front of your team and you go, well, you know what, we're pretty excited about this, and your energy level doesn't match, there's a gap. And people are going to go, I wonder if he really wants to do this or not. I wonder if she really is into that or not. And then people start doing weird stuff. They start going like, you have to understand, there's a whole invisible world of where people take sides. This is true. So whenever they feel like something's in there, I don't know if we watch too much reality TV or what, but somewhere along the way, we fit stuff in there. We fit narratives in there. We can create narratives. All you got to do is watch TV and you're already guessing who's going to do and and how that, and I bet this, and we're trying to figure it out before it happens. And we do this in real life too. And when there's a lack of congruence between that energy that we're seeing at the top and the energy that we bring, and people start filling stuff in there with that, it's sideways energy. It's not going to be on point, and we need to have congruence. There needs to be that essence of, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're going. This is why we do. Hey, that's why this is the vision. And you got to say it a million times. You think you say it twice and they get it. They don't. Vision leaks. That's what my mentor, Dwight Mason, taught me. He said, Kevin, vision leaks. And guess what? It does. And if you and that's one of the things that you just probably some of the best stories I have of like being frustrated are going to be where the vision was leaking. So leadership congruence is important, and you have to be self-aware. You have to be consciously competent in terms of, hey, look, I'm a professional. I'm conducting myself into this. And listen, when there's attachment, like we talked about earlier, and when there's all kinds of things like that, think about how sideways it all gets when you don't have congruence. So fight for it. Keep in that pocket. That was a phrase I would tell myself a lot of times. If I was getting out of, I would call it like I'm hydroplaning. So sometimes I'm moving and shaking and I'm doing my thing and I'm out of control. I feel like the back wheels are starting to spin a little bit. And all of a sudden I'm going like, okay, I'm self-assessing at that point, right? I'm locking it up because I'm beginning to start to feel that we're going sideways, that I'm kicking in a shadow mission somewhere, and I don't want to do that. And I got to reel it back in. Done that, been there, had that moment. And sometimes I have to find a pocket. Congruence is a pocket. It's a pace. It's a consistency. It's a focus. And it's an intention. And you got it. My question I would ask myself is, who needs me on my A game today? If we don't do this, it won't get done. How do I do this? How do I lean into this? What can I bring my best to today? I mean, my intentions and level of awareness had to be really high. And it's hard. You're moving and shaking. You're doing stuff. That's what happens, but that's key. Let's keep moving. So, enlarging the circle and extending the reach. I'm going to give you a 5-piece framework here, okay? So the first thing is this. When you're enlarging the circle and you're extending the reach, that means you're recruiting. And my 5-point framework for this is recruit, train, motivate, inspire, and retain. So it's always funny because people would always ask me what I did and what my title was and all this other kind of stuff. And it was kind of funny because I couldn't say I'm a second chair leader, or anything like that. It just was, you always have this, whatever I am, the director of, blah, 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 blah. So what happens is this. So when someone asked me what I did, I said, you want to know what my title is or you want to know what I do? And they said, we want to know what you do. And I said, I recruit, train, motivate, inspire, and retain volunteers. That's what I do. So think about the list of things you want to do to recruit. Are you attracting people to you? Because there's so much alignment between what you're doing and the vision, right? All the things we talked about are very attractive things, by the way. And I really didn't have a hard time getting volunteers, primarily because of that alignment. So that was important to understand. But here's the thing. I wanted to make sure that on the recruiting side, when you get into the training piece of it, okay, now you're sitting there going like, hey, now the training is very succinct. It's very clear about what it is. That's where the that's why we's live, by the way. When you're training the that's why we's. And then inspiring and motivating. Now it's like, hey, the one thing I know that I want to have come out of this time that you're with me is you. I want you to be at the end of your time with working alongside me, whatever this endeavor is, and say, hey, I'm a better me. I'm a better mom. I'm a better sister, a better wife, a better mother, a better dad, a better son, a better friend, a better father. I mean, all those things you start thinking about. I just want you to be better. So the motivate and inspire things. And again, I'm looking at my priorities in line to that because I knew that if I could do those four, the retention piece of it would be there. You'd want to stick around because why would you leave somewhere where you're growing and flourishing? Why would you leave that? There would be no reason. And listen, if you're leading in a second chair, your job is to make sure you're just not getting it done, but you're developing people in the process of it. Their lives need to be changed alongside this while you're doing it. That is so key. And I want you to understand, I don't want you to forget that. So you have to enlarge the circle and you're going to continue. And guess what? Pretty soon, you're going to develop some key people around you who are going to enlarge the circle themselves because you can't recruit for everybody else. They're going to have to recruit for themselves. So when you get concentric circles of growth on your team, when you have leaders who are recruiting leaders and they're recruiting and training and motivating, inspiring and retaining on their end, something beautiful happens. You have what's called a movement. It is so cool. It gets me jacked. So I'm sitting there going like, hey, there's this movement. There's something, we're doing damage. This is what it is. And now the team's coming together. And listen, and don't get freaked out because you'll freak out. You just will. Because here's the thing you'll learn. I don't have to fill anybody's cup. I just have to make sure I'm emptying mine. I don't have to know everything about everything because that's the freak out part. Well, look at all these people. What are we going to do? Wrong answer. Hey, look, I just want to show you what I'm learning right now. And that is that is the key part of motivation and inspiration. You got to understand something. Motivation isn't rah-rah. Motivation is utility. When you have utility in your life, you'll be motivated. When there's something that's useful and when there's something that's helpful, and when I feel like, hey, I have fulfillment and I'm on a mission and I'm experiencing growth, there's utility there. That's motivation. That's going to keep people engaged. And it's often something we don't look at or talk about. But you have to think about. So not only as a second chair leader, are you now accomplishing the vision, right? You're accomplishing that's why your priorities, all the things you're doing. You're having good fights. You're doing all this stuff, right? Now you're sitting there thinking like, whoa, wait a minute. I have to now continue to impact the lives of the people who are trusting their time with what we're trying to accomplish. Boom chakalaka. I mean, right? I mean, isn't this awesome? You get to do this. That's what's beautiful about it. You get to do it. You get to be the person who's in there and you're just driving it. You're just going like, wow, I'm seeing lives change, not just from the impact of the vision itself, but from the people who are accomplishing it. It's not a to-do list. It's not a task list. If it's just tasks and to-dos, you're missing the point. The best thing that should come out of all of this, and the only way you can extend your reach, if the best thing isn't you, then we're missing it. You should be the best thing that's happening right now. You should be in the second chair going, I can't believe how much I'm growing right now. This is unreal. And that's the key here. We get so sucked into the vortex of do and go and have, and we don't, and we got to, and we need to, and how come we don't, and all that other stuff that we miss out on the opportunity to grow. Don't miss out on that. Okay? All right, here we go. So listen, you got to enlarge the circle, you got to extend the reach. Recruit, train, motivate, inspire, and retain. So here's the thing. There was a gathering, and this is the 1911 Solvay Conference. And it was way back in the day, obviously. And many of the people who stood in that room were people who were the best in the world at the time in physics. And Madame Curie's in there, young Albert Einstein, whippersnapper back there, and Ernst Solvay's back at the head of the table. And actually, that's a photo, the very first ever Photoshop. He could not make it in person, so they actually photographer took a picture of him and superimposed it over some guy sitting there, by the way, for anyway, that was all probably not helpful information anyway. So here's the thing. It's always important that you surround yourself. When we go, let's go back a minute. When we talk about enlarge the circle and extend the reach, this is where you got to be with people. You got to you got to be around others who are trying to change the world, who are trying to accomplish the thing, who are trying to do things. You have to be, as number twos, you got to be around number twos. It's second chairs, you got to be around second chairs. You got to be around others. You just got to network. Your network is your net worth, and you got to find people who are doing it, who are ahead of you. And that was one of the beautiful things that my leader Dwight taught me, is like, I can't chase him. He doesn't have enough time for me and all the other second chairs in the organization. He's chasing these big things. I needed to go hunt for others who are like me out there. And many of you have those networks, and you need to be consistent, and you need to find that group of people, because none of those people sitting there ever were invited because they had a Nobel Prize. But I will guarantee you that 17 of the 29 won them because they were there. And this is the investment they made over and over, and year after year, sharing ideas, sharing what works, doing the work. Now, let me tell you something that comes out of this. There's a whole framework that comes out of this. This is one of my favorite pictures, and I have a bunch of them from back in the day. But there's another 5-piece framework that's really important here. And it's clarity. Starts with clarity. They got together and they got clarity. And once they had clarity and they were together, they then got energy, right? Clarity always brings energy. They got clarity. They shared ideas. They shared concept. They tested their ideas, and they got excited about what they were learning. Clarity, energy. But it always takes you to a point of courage. They all had to go back and be alone again. They all had to take all the cool stuff that they learned from each other and put it into practice in some way and stick their neck out and take a risk. Clarity, energy, courage. But here's what's cool. Whenever you have clarity, energy, and courage, and you lean in and you're taking that risk, you're doing that thing, you're connecting with what's going on with the organization, you're adding to the that's why we's, you're putting yourself out there, you're laying out, get into, now we go to the priorities, right? The next one is priority. It's basically it's productivity is the next piece of it. So it's clarity, energy, courage, productivity, which is priorities, by the way. And now you start really taking your priorities to another level, because you're working on multiple levels. You're working on it as much as you're working in it. Does that make sense? So when you're with others, you're in on it mode. When you come back, you're in it mode. You have in it level priorities. You're working alongside your number one, your first chair, and you're working alongside them. But now you're in the second chair world, and now you're working on something, working on you. You're sharpening your axe with others. And all of a sudden, I know that when those four come together, something magical happens. Whenever you have clarity, you have energy. When you have energy and clarity, you have courage. It takes you to the point of courage. When you have courage, all of a sudden your priorities just max out. Large circle, extend to reach, all that cool stuff. And then your productivity just goes way up. You're delegating more. You understand how important it is to scale yourself in and through others. And then the last thing is you become a person of influence. And the influence is the last piece of it. So it's clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. Influence is the thing you want, because when you have that moment, when you have done that thing, when you have gone where you've gone and you've made that difference, all of a sudden now others, people aren't stupid. They're going to see the connection between how you do what you're doing and how the organization is flourishing and how you're flourishing in the midst of it and your team is flourishing. And trust me, people will want a piece of you. They're going to come and find you. They're going to want to know what you're doing. And guess what? All you have to do is empty your cup. Now, we talked about a bunch of things here, this little 30-minute thing, but I'm telling you, the difference that you're making in the world is phenomenal. I mean, there's no doubt that if you're watching this, that you're doing difference, that the level of purpose that you're living with, that you're chasing, getting after, it's awesome. It's time to level up, though. It's time to take it to another level. And I want to challenge you to do that. I don't want you to do today what you did yesterday, hoping things are different tomorrow, because it's not going to be that way. You're going to have to find a level of clarity, go to new levels of energy, live in a world of courage, get higher levels of productivity. It means delegation. That means taking that, enlarge the circle and extend the reach through delegation and bringing other people who are number twos for you and second chairs for you to another level. And then leveraging that influence on behalf of the vision. Watch what happens. And I will guarantee you, you'll see me somewhere. You're going to see me at Walmart. You're going to see the bald guy somewhere at a restaurant or Starbucks typically or something like that. You're going to go, hey, let me tell you a story. And I can't wait to hear the stories, because I know the stories are going to be awesome. And the best story that you're going to tell is the one about how you have grown and how your team has experienced a level of growth. The organization is just flourishing and you're experiencing levels of fulfillment you've never thought. And I'm telling you, it's powerful and you're going to be excited about it. And I'm excited talking about it. So, hey, it's a thrill to be able to share this with you. I hope this helps you see a little bit of just how important and how vital you really are in the big scheme of things, and how important. Here's the thing. There are people out there who are just waiting for an opportunity to be led by you in that chair, and for them to experience the growth that you're going to experience as well. So with that said, hey, do some damage. And like I always say, as the CEO of Invisible Insights, when you see the invisible, you become unstoppable. And we saw a lot of invisible today. Hey, do some damage, everyone. Take care.